Il me forçait à agir comme ça. Le code, c'est la loi.
The story unfolds in the year 1759, on a secluded island off the coast of France. Under the scorching sun, dozens of enslaved Africans toil endlessly in vast sugarcane fields, their sweat soaking the earth that would never belong to them. The plantation is ruled by a cold-hearted man named Larsnet, whose eyes see people only as tools of profit. One afternoon, Larsnet calls upon his most trusted slave, Masamba, a man known for his obedience. With a firm tone, he orders Masamba to tell the others to work harder. In just 2 weeks, the harvest will begin, and failure is not an option. When Masamba delivers the message, his fellow workers react with anger and disgust. To them, Masamba has become nothing more than a hound of the white man, betraying his own kind for survival. That night, Masamba's daughter, Maddie, approaches him quietly under the flickering light of a torch. Her eyes, filled with both fear and determination, plead with her father. She wants them to run away to a place she's heard of in whispered tales, a land called Bumi, where people live free and no one is treated like an animal. But Masamba shakes his head. He tells her that Bumi doesn't exist. It's only a myth, a story told to comfort desperate hearts. The next morning, tragedy strikes. A married couple is caught trying to escape. As punishment, they are brutally tortured before everyone's eyes.
Il me forçait à agir comme ça. Le code, c'est la loi.
That night, Maddie weeps uncontrollably. The horror she witnessed only deepens her desire to flee. Once again, she begs her father to escape with her, but Masamba refuses. He whispers that he isn't ready, and that anyone caught trying to run would be hanged without mercy.
Papil.
Not long after, Masamba is summoned by Larsnet, who has just received a visit from the governor. In the grand hall of the plantation, Masamba, a man whose spirit has long been chained, obediently explains to the governor that black people are like beasts of burden, born to serve their white masters. The governor listens, nods with a pleased smile, clearly satisfied with the response. But when Masamba is later asked why so many slaves have attempted to escape, his answer surprises everyone. They run, he says quietly, because they are simply too tired to keep living this way. The governor's face twisted in fury. To him, black people had no right to feel exhaustion, for in his eyes, they were no different from beasts of burden. Enraged by Masamba's words, he declared that such insolence could not be tolerated. With a sharp command, he ordered Masamba to be expelled from the chamber.
Excusez.
Les Noirs d'Afrique appartenaient à la race humaine.
Épargnez-moi ce mot. Ressaisissez-vous.
Masamba was no longer permitted to share his hut with his daughter, Maddie. The governor found her spirit dangerous, too wild, too aware, and decided she would be better controlled under Larsnet's supervision. But when the guards came to take her away, Maddie escaped into the night, vanishing into the dense shadows of the island's forests. Panic gripped Masamba's heart. The thought of his daughter being caught, and possibly hanged, haunted him endlessly. By morning, Larsnet, seething with rage over her disappearance, commanded his men to track her down. His most trusted tracker, a ruthless hunter named Poison, was summoned along with his 2 sons. Among the search party was Honey, the governor's own son, who demanded to join the hunt. He insisted that if Maddie was found, she must not be executed immediately, a rare glimpse of compassion that even his father hesitated to question. While the trackers set off, Masamba was dragged into the open yard, chained and beaten savagely. They demanded to know where his daughter had fled, but he remained silent, even as blood pooled beneath him. Not a single word escaped his lips. Frustrated, the men turned their attention to Ruba, one of Maddie's closest friends. Threatened and terrified, Ruba finally broke, confessing that Maddie had fled toward the mythical land of Bumi, the place everyone believed to be a legend. Upon hearing this, Poison and his sons immediately rode off into the wilderness, following the faint traces of her escape. Meanwhile, Masamba was thrown into a dark, locked hut, forbidden to leave until his daughter was captured and brought back. As dusk fell, Ruba crept through the shadows, tossing them poisoned meat to silence their barks. When night came and the guards drifted into sleep, she slipped into the hut where Masamba was imprisoned and freed him. Overwhelmed with gratitude and grief, Masamba fled into the forest, disappearing into the same darkness that had swallowed his daughter. The wilderness ahead was vast, unforgiving, and filled with danger, but it was also his only hope of finding Maddie again. He struggled to break the chain still locked around his neck, until it finally snapped free with a rusted groan. Breathing heavily, he looked to the horizon, the direction his daughter had taken, and continued his journey into the wilderness. Elsewhere, Poison and his sons had set up camp by the same river. One of them, Hotel, carried within him a quiet unrest. Watching the endless suffering of the enslaved, a flicker of conscience stirred inside him. Though he rarely spoke of it, he despised the cruelty of the trade his family served. Yet his father, Poison, remained unshaken, a man convinced that the people they hunted were nothing more than animals meant to obey. By the next morning, Masamba's movement through the woods was spotted through Poison's spyglass. Without hesitation, the hunters mounted their horses and gave chase. While fleeing deeper into the jungle, Masamba crossed paths with another fugitive, Joy, a gaunt man carrying his wife and infant child. Like Masamba, he sought freedom, but fate was merciless. The baby's cry pierced through the silence, revealing their hiding place. Knowing their time was short, Joy handed Masamba a handmade machete, a crude but powerful blade forged by slaves, urging him to stand and fight. A violent clash followed. In the struggle, Hotel, the hunter with a flicker of humanity, was struck down, his body collapsing into the mud. The forest fell silent except for the sound of his father's rage echoing through the trees. Amid the chaos, Masamba spared Radio, Poison's younger son, choosing mercy over vengeance. Later, Masamba reached the river once more, exhausted and starving. There he met an older man named Dino, a wise and quiet fugitive who had long lived in hiding. Seeing Masamba's condition, Dino took him to his secret refuge deep within the jungle, a place untouched by the master's reach. There, Masamba was fed for the first time in days. He ate slowly, every bite a reminder that he was still alive, and that his daughter was still out there somewhere. Gratitude filled his heart, though exhaustion weighed heavily upon him. When morning came, Radio, haunted by the mercy Masamba had shown him, decided not to join his father's pursuit. His mother said nothing, unable to stop him. But Joseph, Radio's older brother, was furious. To him, mercy was weakness and vengeance was duty. His anger would soon set another trail of blood through the jungle. Despite the tension between them, Radio remained steadfast in his decision to abandon the hunt. Meanwhile, Masamba, now rested and guided by Dino's wisdom, prepared to resume his journey. Before parting, Dino warned him that Maddie would likely not head toward the mythical Bumi, for such a place was said to be hidden beyond reach. Instead, she would have gone toward the coast, seeking freedom through the sea. Trusting the old man's intuition, Masamba set off toward the shore, driven by the faint hope of finding his daughter alive. Not long after his departure, Poison and Joseph discovered Dino's hideout. The old man stood defiant, refusing to reveal where Masamba had gone. Enraged, Poison shot him without hesitation, his body collapsing beside the small fire that had once kept fugitives warm. The men ransacked the place, overturning baskets and tearing through makeshift walls until they found Masamba's discarded clothing, still damp with sweat and mud. Calling for his hunting dog, Yayan, Poison let the animal pick up the scent. With a growl, the beast caught Masamba's trail, leading its masters deeper into the wilderness. At the same time, Masamba was crossing a wide river, his feet slipping over mossy stones. Suddenly, Yayan lunged from the shadows, teeth flashing in the sunlight. The two tumbled together into the raging current, swept downstream until they crashed over the edge of a waterfall. The roar of water swallowed their struggle. Bruised and bleeding, Masamba clawed his way onto the riverbank, only to face Joseph, who had survived the fall. The young man attacked with fury born of grief, but Masamba, pushed beyond exhaustion and rage, fought back with raw instinct. They found only the aftermath, the tracks, the blood, and the silence that followed death. A father's grief hardened into unrelenting wrath. The next morning, Masamba emerged from the forest and finally reached the coastline just as Dino had foretold. The scene before him was desolate. Broken huts, remnants of fires, and bodies lying still, victims of starvation and despair. Masamba encountered 3 men laboring over a small wooden boat, their hands rough from days of work. They were preparing a vessel to brave the open sea. Exhausted yet determined, Masamba approached them, hoping they might have seen his daughter. One of the men looked up from his work, his expression shifting as if he recognized the name. Guided by the stranger's directions, Masamba made his way toward a narrow cave carved deep within the cliffs. The air inside was damp and heavy, echoing the soft drip of water from unseen cracks above. As he stepped into the darkness, his heart pounded with both fear and hope. Then, through the faint shimmer of light filtering from a crack in the stone, he saw her, Maddie, his daughter, weak but alive. For the first time in what felt like eternity, father and daughter were reunited. Behind them, Poison and Joseph had tracked their scent to the shoreline, following every faint trace through mud and brush. Yet Masamba, wise and cautious, had doubled back and erased his tracks, vanishing into the maze of the jungle. The hunters searched restlessly, unaware that their prey watched them from the shadows. That night, beneath a bruised sky and the rumble of approaching thunder, Masamba made a choice. He would no longer run. Kneeling before a small fire, he carved symbols into the soil, a sacred ritual of his ancestors. With eyes closed and hands trembling, he called upon the spirits of the fallen, asking for the strength to end the cycle of torment once and for all. Moments later, the heavens answered. Rain poured from the sky, drenching the earth, hissing over the flames. The wind howled through the trees like a chorus of ancient voices. Masamba took it as a sign. His plea had been heard. From the storm's darkness, he struck. His ambush was swift and furious, catching the hunters unprepared. Panic erupted as lightning split the night, illuminating chaos, blades flashing, mud splattering, and shouts swallowed by the rain. In the brutal clash, Joseph fell, his lifeless body collapsing beside his father's boots. Now only Poison remained, his hatred burning brighter than the lightning above. He shot Masamba, the bullet tearing through his side, but even wounded, Masamba refused to fall. Fueled by the power of rage and ancestry, he fought until his enemy's body lay still in the storm's wake. The oppressor was dead. By dawn, the rain had ceased. Maddie found her father collapsed among the ruins of battle, blood seeping into the soil. Desperate, she tried to lift him, urging him to move as they stumbled away from the cursed place. But exhaustion overcame him, and he collapsed once more, his breathing shallow and fading. Maddie screamed his name into the wind, her voice echoing through the cliffs. Her cries drew the attention of villagers from the hills above, who rushed down upon hearing her desperate wails. They carried Masamba's wounded body back to their settlement, their faces marked by both pity and reverence, for they could see in him a man who had defied death itself. When Masamba awoke, he found himself surrounded by warmth and unfamiliar faces. The villagers who had rescued him spoke softly, tending to his wounds with care and reverence. It was then that he realized this was Bumi, the very place he and Maddie had been searching for all along. Nestled between the mountains and the sea, Bumi was a sanctuary for the free. No chains, no masters, no lashes, only the rhythm of the waves and the quiet harmony of survival. Maddie caught a glimpse of a familiar figure, the soft outline of her late mother, standing near the edge of the forest, her presence shimmering like mist. It was fleeting, but it filled Maddie's heart with peace. She smiled through tears, believing her mother's spirit had finally found rest. But freedom, once stolen, never remains safe for long. At dawn, the sound of marching boots shattered the calm. Soldiers, sent by the governor himself, had discovered the hidden haven. They descended upon Bumi with fire and chains, determined to reclaim those who had escaped the plantations. Panic spread through the village, yet no one ran. Instead, the people stood together, hearts unbroken.
Le gouverneur vous en fait la promesse.
As the soldiers approached, they began to sing, a song of freedom, one born from centuries of suffering and defiance. Their voices rose like thunder, carried by the sea wind, echoing against the cliffs. When the governor's men reached the shore, they found the villagers marching into the ocean, hand in hand, their song unwavering. In that moment, the soldiers stood still, powerless, silent, and shamed before the courage of those they had tried to break. The legend says that on calm nights, the wind over the sea still carries that song. The song of those who chose death over chains, and of one father and daughter who found Bumi, the land beyond suffering.